copycats and beautiful people murmuring intrigue. They travel in expensive cars with telltale antennas. Cellular car phones, once a new and expensive status symbol.
Stay out of getting involved and I could flex the deal.
This more and more is a reality. A Fort Worth contractor in his pickup truck, talking ordinary business on his way from job to job.
Break my heart, break my heart. Couldn't afford them anyway, but I...
Or a housewife simply keeping in touch with friends.
This one for $7.99.
The cost of cellular phones has been dropping. Installation now is about $1,000, monthly charge around $100. And they are a hot item. 1.25 million customers today and 58,000 new ones every month. A year from now, every metropolitan area of the nation will have cellular phone service.
It definitely has increased the money that I make.
Small businessmen have taken to cellular phones like ducks to water.
So let me know when the listing comes out so that I can try and sell it and work with you guys.
For Los Angeles real estate salesman Tom Carnahan, the car phone is a dream come true.
That's not a bad property for 1 year.
Mark Cousins, foreign producer of NBC Nightly News, walks his kids to school in Manhattan every morning.
Hey, I'm Kyle. Thanks for joining me and Andy for the Legendary Creature Podcast. So, if you're listening with your kids or your conservative grandma, maybe don't, because we swear.
Or you can check us out on YouTube, because hey, that's no place for conservative old women or children.
Fuck yeah.
Don't want to play that game too.
Does she want to play?
She wants to play Stardew Valley together, like run a farm together, you know, like it's about as much work as getting married.
You're like, we got to divide chores and execute doing chores.
Yeah, it would be less work for us to just get married. All right, retrospective part 2.
Part 2, dude.
Part 2. So how are we going to concourse this?
So I think this last episode, we sort of took an all-encompassing approach, looking at the product in general, the Magic the Gathering product and how it looked for EDH. And I think this time we want to sort of take a look at our experience as Commander players ourselves, you and I, and our play group.
Yeah.
And hopefully what we have to say maybe translates in some way as to what our experience looks like and how it evolves for Commander players.
Sure. I envision it more, this episode, more of like just a blog about
it pretty much is
about our bullshit. Like if we're just going to call it what it is, like that's what it is. You know, it's not here to help anybody. It's for us. It's just to, you know, put some filler in before we get new.
It's a little talk therapy before we move on. If you happen to observe or hear or whatever.
Yeah, we can call it a therapy session. Therapy session 2018.
What the fuck happened?
Yeah, what the fuck happened? All right, well, hit us off, dude. Give us a topic of what the things you wanted to kind of go over.
So I think for me, I kind of want to maybe couch some of our discussion in some of the topics that we've talked about on the podcast this year.
Okay. Yeah.
The first one that's on my mind is just sort of politics and what that's looked like for us in our play group.
Yeah.
I think politics recently have been a popular topic on other content creators' channels. I will note that we did a podcast earlier this year. Andy, I think, had a very authoritative view and perspective on what politics look. I really think you did.
Yeah.
You know, like you had very, very specific examples. I think a lot of people have the approach with politics of looking at it from a behavioral perspective.
Okay.
Which there's an element of that when you're playing Magic the Gathering, but you, I think, very, very skillfully demonstrated what it looks like in terms of the gameplay.
Yeah, all right.
And so I kind of want to look at that. What's it looked like for us? And you couched politics a lot in the idea of leverage. Can you build things into your deck that allow you to leverage your position in a way that encourages people to do the things you want them to do or need them to do?
Yeah. I think over the course of the year, I've practiced it in different shapes.
Yeah.
That episode, like thinking about just decks that work pretty well with it, the pinger list does.
Oh, yeah.
Because
you're presenting it.
Yeah, I have a pretty obvious way to remove your creature. I have a death touch setup or something, like a way just to kind of remove them from the game. So I'm kind of directing damage away. Shu Yun.
Shu Yun for sure. That's one that I actually had down.
Yeah, I can kind of spin it where I established pretty early on like how quickly it can take someone out of the game, out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, like you go and hit somebody. I think you're a little bit constrained most of the time, like where you could probably lethal somebody out the gate.
Yeah,
you most of the time you put somebody close.
Yeah, I'll put someone close and then send a message to that person to stay away. But then to the other two, they see the potential, like, well, that happened really fast for him. So the more cards I have in my hand, the more nervous the party gets.
Yeah,
and it's pretty much me trying to balance you guys against each other. Because if you all three gang up on me, I'm going to take one, maybe two of you down with me, and one person's going to be the winner. And I don't think anyone wants to be that person. So what ends up happening is I get kind of ignored for a while and just keep seeping in more commander damage until everyone's within just a double combat away to take me to the victory.
Yeah.
So it you wouldn't think it's a political deck, but I try to play it like one, because if I don't, then it's just I'm just going to rush people and I don't engage them in a conversation. So I'm going to rush the first person. The other two is going to rush me down, and then I'll just die, and the first person will die with me, like every other Voltron deck.
Exactly.
So, I don't know. That one I think I use it politically, but yeah, it's a good exercise in leverage.
One of the things that I think has come up for me since having that discussion is trying to shift my perspective away from favors to leverage. Because I think I have this tendency to send implicit favors to people, hoping they get the implication.
Yeah. And they might, but since it's not explicit, it's not public knowledge.
It's not explicit, and favors don't obligate anybody to anything, is the other thing.
Yeah.
So I think Brad and I both have experienced this in different ways this year. Brad did a Gahiji politics group hug deck kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Where he'd give everybody tokens.
It was a group combat encouragement.
Yeah.
Deck. Like every other Gahiji list falls into, it seems like.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
And Gahiji inherently by itself kind of lends itself to like, well, okay, everybody else that's into combat, just don't go at me because you'll get more bonus out of it.
You'll get more out of your, yeah.
And he was trying to get favors by giving other people tokens, but invariably people would use those tokens for other purposes. Or they just didn't want to piss people off because they were going to do a lot of damage because Gahiji was out. And
yeah.
They didn't want to.
Suddenly they're 3/1s. You know, 1/1 becomes a 3/1, and you've got 4 of them. People didn't want to do anything with that, and so I think Brad found himself in this weird space with trying to do favors. I've tried to do that. I think I have a tendency to do that overall, but the best embodiment of that for me has been in Vivictus, where I would usually just pick the most primo permanent for the person that was ahead. Okay,
and then I would just pick a token or some minor piece for everybody else. And it never panned out well for me.
Because they could fall into something good.
Yeah, they end up falling into something good.
And 2, they don't remember the favor, the favor you gave them.
Remember how I could have destroyed your commander again?
But instead I did this token. In fact, I remember a couple occasions where you were asking, which permanent are you willing to let go of? So I think the way to do that one is, I'm going to break this unless you give me a reason not to.
Yeah.
You know, and then if no one has a good reason, then you break it and roll the dice off the top of the
exactly.
deck. But that's one way you could do it. Or you just don't ask. You just play the game through.
Yeah, I mean, there's some commanders that aren't meant to be political. And Vivictus to me is kind of one of those where I'm like, I kept trying to buy favors. I tend to do that a lot where, you know, like I'll I'll be kind to people.
But you want to be more explicit about that now.
And I've been a lot more explicit about that.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely something that's shifted the play environment over the course of the last year. Is how people are leveraging each other more than they used to be, rather than I'm just comboing the fuck off, or I'm whatever. Like our decks have slowed down. Actually,
that's true.
I think we had our peak maybe a year and a half, like before we did the podcast. But honestly, the podcast is kind of challenging to continue to make decks that we want to talk about, because we want them tested. At least most of our decks are tested.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I think that's a
we
big
just
part
can't
of
be
it.
pumping out A-list expensive decks all the time. Like, we just don't have a way to fund that. And two, like, we've kind of, I don't know, we've kind of seen a lot of it already. Like this, you know, or if not exactly it, something in the neighborhood.
Some
of,
emulation of it.
some emulation of just some crazy deck. So yeah, I think our decks have slowed down, and because of that, you have a lot more people engaging each other rather than just going off.
Yeah.
And the deck is just going to clear itself through the game, and you don't need to involve anyone else. You have a way to handle everything. You know, I feel like we've kind of done that.
I think that's definitely happened with it, and there's another aspect of that, and I think we can maybe dive into this part of the conversation a little bit next, which would be the arms race. But before we do that, I don't know, I just kind of wanted to bring up a few other commanders that we've seen that maybe try to play the political game a little bit.
Okay.
You mentioned your pingers list. I think AP's Kaientai deck kind of does it goes about with the favors route, I think.
It does.
That's maybe an instance where it sort of works a little bit, because there's a lot of continual benefit that comes from Kaientai being at the table. One that we saw that was attempted was Xancha.
Yeah, AP tried Xancha, and it just didn't pan out. Everyone is annoyed by this bowling ball this pinball that's rolling around, bouncing off everybody.
Yeah,
like, she's very big. They're not very big, but she's early.
She's early enough at that.
She's
size.
early, and then that card draw thing. Like, no one's gonna. It's actually kind of a lot to sink into a mana to draw one card and deal 2 damage to him. It's not really worth it. You'd rather advance your own board state. Like, you'd rather just get your Phyrexian Arena online.
Yeah, usually if you're paying for Xancha's activated ability, you're kind of desperate.
Kinda, yeah. So he didn't really build it the way you and I had envisioned it, which is forcing the table to need her activated ability.
Yeah.
That they're not getting they've got Sire of Insanity, and they've got a lot of card denial and hand destruction where they want to use her ability.
Yeah.
But even still, like, now you're annoying them in 2 different ways. You're annoying them that this permanent's out attacking everybody, and then you're annoying them by ripping their options away. Like,
yeah, the best way is to get rid of you.
Yeah, and it's not so much about like, oh, we don't want to annoy the people we play with. Like, I was going to talk about it later today on this episode, but it's just that it just doesn't work. Everybody ends up just, all right, I'm removing this thing, and everyone says hooray, and then that's it, and then we have to wait for it to come back out again. And now she's falling behind the curve.
Yeah,
she doesn't have menace, she doesn't have evasions anymore. Like, and if you've been enchanting her or something, like,
you lost all that.
Yeah, it's all down the. It's a weird design.
Yeah,
but
I was very intrigued by it.
It was
but
political the way he tried to push it.
Yeah, it political in a way that doesn't quite work for you as the pilot of that deck, right?
Yeah, she doesn't jive here on this. Yeah, Queen Marquisa.
Queen Marquisa is another one that I had listed that plays very politically.
Yeah,
I think in a manner of speaking, because there's that monarch that's available to people, and to me, it's almost more Game of Thrones like than just strictly political. Like it actually plays to your favor if people
start coming at
you
the way I built it. Yeah, it's more like they're kind of aware that I'm a problem. It's not all right. He's like, so Kaientai, like, people kind of, I think, at least I kind of delude myself into thinking I'm gonna have more lands and more card draw, and eventually, like, he's just gonna get punished for it.
Right.
But the scam is that he's getting both. He's able to drop an extra land and draw a card.
Right. So the hope is that you can cut him off before he gets his payoff.
But yeah, it rarely happens. And yeah, his life total isn't really coming down because he has kind of a bigger blocker, and people aren't really super concerned with trying to bring him out because they want the effects that he's resolving on the table. So his is kind of like it's a scam.
It is a scam. Totally.
My Queen Marquisa list is, I'm kind of sowing discord, I think is the way to say it. Like I'm like, oh, key to the city, your creature, it's unblockable now.
Yeah.
Attack them.
Discord
Or
with
if you attack them, I'll make it unblockable.
with the final deception where Littlefinger gets his throat cut, right?
Yeah. It's happened. I've come short where I'm like, oh shit, I didn't draw into the things I needed. I'm fucked. Like, and I'm in a 1v1 situation with the last person that I've been piggybacking the whole game, and now I'm not ready to pivot. It's happened because I need to be able to
1v1 is good.
Yeah, I need to be able to fall into delirium, backlash type effects. You know, deflecting palm, like those are the things I need to fall into before we are facing each other. And if I haven't found them, or I've had to use them earlier when it was not the right time, yeah, it's not good. It's one hell of a deck, though. It's fun to pilot. It's stressful, but it's fun to pilot.
When I was kind of like, I don't know, doing a little, just some notes to maybe go off of this episode, I was like, man, Andy actually does a lot more political type stuff than, or decks that I think could be used to leverage and be political, so Discord than the rest of us kind of do.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's been a cool facet of the play group this year.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Because it's something that I like is I don't, the games don't necessarily have to go where you play things in the ideal way, like where you just remove everything immediately.
Right.
You can sort of engineer a game.
Yeah, engineer use for that. Oh, like, oh shit, that's a big creature. Let me engineer a way where it's not attacking me, and then keeping a catalog of, okay, well, it's finally ready to attack me. I've run out of ways to divert this, but I really like to kind of calculate, well, it did 3 attacks against Kyle, or it did, 1 attack against Tiffany. Like, there was a lot of damage that, because I was diverting it away from me, either by bullshitting or threatening to remove something or whatever, like it got a lot of damage through to my opponents.
Yeah,
something that's not even in my deck.
Yeah, it's a proxy war for Andy for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is Assyria. Yeah, yeah. Okay, what else did we experience this year?
So I kind of thought it might be interesting to talk about the arms race, because I think this is manifest in a variety of ways. And the outcomes.
How detailed do you want to make this? Like, should we talk about probably our lowest point with this whole thing, or do you want to kind of just?
I don't know, because we had another podcast where we talked about the arms race, and I think we illuminated some principles that are important.
Yeah,
but I think we're in the crucible as we speak, in a manner of speaking, of
trying to correct it.
Yeah,
we're Salt 2 right now.
Yeah.
So I think the arms race got really. I think what manifested it the best was your Brago deck.
Yeah, Brago is
that's where the
perfect example.
Where it was like, okay, yeah, clearly he's put a lot of money into this thing, and it's annoying to play against, and it's annoying for you to play with.
Yeah, it got to a point where I couldn't do the things
nobody was having fun
that I enjoyed about it, so I had to be mean, and it sucked for everyone.
Yeah. So we've been kind of conscious of, our play group's experience. So this year, I think when you retired him this year.
Yeah, Brago's gone.
Brago got retired, and then I just barely made the decision to retire Mersil.
Yeah,
because of the same reason. Even though you've been protesting, I don't, but it's the same problem, right? So
yeah,
what happened is that like if you listen to that episode, we kind of experienced an escalation of things. You want to play your favorite deck that you've put so much time into, or you've had a couple of really good game experiences with, but now people are kind of focusing you out earlier than normal. So you respond with, vicious strategies like fucking stasis.
Yeah,
stasis is in that deck.
Yeah.
So it gets to the point where you're not having fun because you feel guilty about playing it,
right?
And people are rolling their eyes when you pull it out of its deck box, and then we're not having fun because it's got fucking stasis in it.
Right.
So yeah, we decided that we wanted to dial back. I think that's what kind of was heralding the change this year was that. But I think in the end, where we landed was, okay, we want to develop kind of like a budget type, league. We called it our budget league.
Right.
And we had trouble finding out what that looked like. Originally, we were like, well, we'll just set the price per card, nothing over $5
Yeah.
can go in the deck. But that was a problem because the decks really weren't budget. There's a lot of staples.
It cut out a handful of cards.
Yeah, it cut out a handful of cards. It didn't hit all the ones that we wanted to hit, and we kept seeing some still same cards.
Yeah.
So then we kind of went the opposite direction, which is, okay, well, we'll just send the overall deck ceiling at 75. But what was annoying about that is you'd have somebody like, Brad, he's a fucking clever guy. He put all of his money into like maybe 1 or 2 cards, and then the rest were 30-cent rares.
Yeah.
So it just pitched everything. Really.
Yeah. So you would and the problem with that specifically is that if you have, let's say, like 3 cards in your deck that are in the $10 to $15, maybe $20 range.
Once you draw them, it'll break everything it's being exposed to.
Exactly. Those cards make your deck efficient. They're there when you look at things, when you're net decking, you look at EDH Rec, you're looking at other deck lists. Those cards are there for a specific reason because it makes the deck hum. And so
if you never draw them, the deck is really operating. It's limping along, kind of.
Yeah.
Comparative to what it could do.
What it could
but
be.
it's fine because everyone else's deck is limping along. But then when somebody in that pool of budget users draws their, Entomb in their Lazav deck, they can go grab the best card in their library and ditch it in. This is a
so
play
now they have a combo that
this
allows
play is
them to
much
end
harder
people.
to achieve when you can't have a card like that in your deck.
Right.
So we corrected it again. We said, okay, we're doing both. So no card over $5 and limit is 75. So now it's really hard to do both. It's either it's just hard to do both.
Yeah, exactly.
And it fixed it a little. It wiped out a lot of staples. That's
that was
what
the
I
goal.
wanted.
That was the goal.
That's what I wanted.
Specifically, we wanted to create more experiences that didn't involve cards like Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah, every blue deck we saw Cyclonic Rift. Every black deck it was, Fleshbag Marauder I think is a pretty big black card. It ends up in a lot of black decks. But whatever. It's not backbreaking like being on the receiving end of Cyclonic Rift.
Right.
So I think that was our huge slowdown. And a lot of decks were born out of it.
There have been.
We kind of realized we're not very good at budget building at the start. You have to kind of correct your thinking a little.
You got to learn.
I'm not very confident in these at all. Like how we were doing it. That's why we don't really have any episodes about budget building.
Yeah, and in fact, I know in social media, I've referred people to some other budget content creators because they're just more skilled at it than we are.
There's
we're learning.
Podcast dedicated to it. There's YouTube channels dedicated. So we're new at it. I'm liking it. It kind of gets it just like playing outside of the budget where your sky's the ceiling. It does kind of get tiresome. There's a moment where you're like, I actually want to play this deck that I'm comfortable with and have worked years on. Like I've spent years working on Duretti.
Oh yeah.
So some nights I want to just play it. But then you have people that don't switch off. They built their brand new budget deck and they want to play that tonight. And you're like, okay, but I don't want to bring this monster against you because price of cards is proportional to your win percentage. It just is. Like,
oh yeah.
They are expensive for a reason. They're
Yeah,
not expensive because they just look cool.
I'm oftentimes skeptical when I
in
see
some cases.
when I see people do kind of clickbaity headlines like budget deck that'll beat everything. I'm just like, okay, I believe that your budget deck is good,
and functional,
but I don't believe that it's going to beat decks that have a better budget.
Yeah.
Have a bigger budget.
After we have more time with this, maybe we'll have more to say about it because I feel like we're developing an opinion about budgeteering, budget brewing, budget McBudget. We're kind of headed in that direction, but we'll just kind of say we're doing it too, and it ain't because it's really because we were just sick of staples, and then like the decks that we liked kept escalating into positions where we didn't feel like we wanted to play them anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But in what you just said, though, I think there's another point that's very interesting that came out of our, I don't know, the arms race budget league, in that how everybody's ingested that has been different.
Oh yeah.
in a couple different ways. One of which is, as you mentioned, there's some people that just they went wild with having budget decks. That's all they bring to play. That's all they want to play that night. Or they just want to keep playing through their budget decks. And there's some of us that still have those non-budget decks we put a lot of work into. That's one aspect. So I think it takes time to build a budget league, I guess. Is something I've learned.
So we started out randomly. We had 2 Jund decks and out of
and it
all
just
of the
fucking
budget,
just like bent everybody over.
it was weird because you had Shatter Gang under Brad, and then we had Vivictus. So no one could hold on to any permanent they gave a shit about.
Right.
And then I was like, what was I doing? Some mono blue thing, and then
Yeah, and you had Virtus and Gorm also in the
yeah,
mix.
they were just getting fucking killed in between all that. It was just because there's it's a new environment. It's a new
Yeah, so we didn't have the variety we needed at first to evolve it. So that's one thing that's interesting to me about the Budget League is it's taken some time for it to have the variety that an established play group would have with just everybody's got a bunch of decks. Another thing though has been and we've talked about this before, but just how people ingested what commanders to choose.
Oh yeah. So me and you were like, well, this is our chance to do commanders that we wouldn't normally be doing because we feel like they're
underwhelming and maybe underpowered or whatever.
Yeah, and then other guys in our group were like, oh, this is a chance for me to make a budget version of a broke-ass commander. So we got budget Yuriko, which was against all of the other decks. It was fucking ridiculous. Like we couldn't. we were all just like, I brought Halar to the table. I remember specifically one game. Like kickers,
I was like,
do some kicking.
And I remember thinking like, Halar's quicker. I can probably like
it's fast.
I can make AP think with his Yuriko deck, and I was just like, fuck, I'm dead.
Yeah,
I can't even get going with Halar fast enough to keep up
because
he
realized that you were going to eventually explode out some damage, so he just focused you down. And then Muldrotha was the other one.
Yeah,
where all these creatures and all right, I'm doing elephant grass. I'm like, motherfucking elephant grass.
Like we can't stop it. Well, Brad did Prosh for a second too.
Yeah, he did like a budget Prosh. It's like it's still Prosh. It's still Muldrotha.
Like, okay, well, we're not gonna see like the key combo that makes Prosh tick.
Sure.
Jesus.
But it's still Prosh.
Still Prosh.
Still Prosh, my dude. That was another thing that we've experienced this year is that.
I think so. Yuriko brings up an interesting thing if we're talking about arms race, because I've taken apart Brago. You've taken apart Maresil. I think we've had people like AP who I think are really good to have in a play group. Someone who's very into the game, but moderates themselves.
He does.
So he built Yuriko, and he just kind of realized like, oh, this is sort of one of those. It's one of those really powerful decks that can annoy the fuck out of people. And instead of trying to push that experience further and further and further for himself, he just took it apart.
Yeah, he got rid of it. It was gone pretty fast. Because either he won hard or he just got killed. It was like, this is not the experience. He wants to be in the narrative. That's what he's looking for. He wants to have things go off, or he's okay with being like the public enemy, but he wants, I don't know. It's different.
But to me, that's a lot of restraint to show, you know?
Yeah, he's definitely been good for our play group for sure.
You put a marshmallow in front of AP and tell him if he waits 15 minutes, he'll get another marshmallow. He can do that.
He'll wait.
I don't know if you and I can wait. Like you and I are like, I want it now.
I didn't know you were that into marshmallows. So you can't wait 15 fucking minutes for the promise of a second one.
I'm the guy eating all the marshmallows out of my Lucky Charms, dude.
Well, speaking of people, I kind of wanted to talk about that too. We've had a lot of new injections. And I was just kind of thinking about how they affect our play environment.
Oh.
So I'm going to use this as an analogy because I don't typically do this, but I'm going to follow your lead with this.
Does it involve parties?
No. Now I'm trying to think of how to make it involve a party. To stick with your meme about social events gone awry. I'm thinking of our play group kind of like an organism.
Yeah.
And that it's constantly being infected by some pathogen. So, and the vectors of those pathogen are the players.
Okay.
So you're a mosquito, and I don't know, a diseased turkey, and AP's a I don't know, some fucking swine. And yeah, like we've got different animals that they spill their bullshit into our play group.
Right.
So I was thinking about how the play group reacts. And unlike a real organism, we never really gain immunity from any singular thing. So a couple things happened this year that I thought was interesting, right?
Yeah.
So the Galta and the Nekusar. So one is both are very good examples of there is no immunity at this table. we've had problems with big swinging commanders before. It's not a new problem at our play group. I'm trying to think of going back to the early days. We had
Kresh was the first one.
We had Kresh. This is way back, by the by, right? Kresh is not a favorable commander now, but
no,
I don't even think he was then. But way back,
yeah, that was probably like 2012, 2013.
He got pretty big. He got pretty big. A lot of things died. It got pretty big. We had that happen, and we had actually specifically Nekusar.
Yeah.
So
and like you said, Ural with the big one. Like
Ural was another one of your big ones. So I was kind of like thinking, cataloging in my mind, like what are some of the, infections that this play group has had that I want to say like, yeah, there's one problem and we know where it comes from.
Sure.
So I'll give like the first one that stuck out was when we very, very, very first played the format, you built a Reese the Redeemed list.
Yeah.
And it just took the fuck over because we transitioning out of standard.
You don't really play board wipes in standard.
Yeah, I remember I was really straining my mind. I was like, when have I ever seen like a board wipe be consistently used in a standard deck? I think Anger of the Gods, but that's kind of a sweeper-ish. Like it doesn't destroy.
Yeah, we might have seen things like Rolling Temblor and things like that, maybe a little bit.
Before we started, I remember hearing a deck that used a lot of had like a full playset of Day of Judgments in there. I can't remember. I think it used like Sun Titan. It had some kind of. It was a control list.
Okay.
So yeah, control decks will use board wipes, but the standard environment we were in, it was very graveyard recursive.
Yeah.
So board wipes were kind of, because there was Dirty Aristocrats. Remember that?
Yeah.
We had French Rights. There was Bant Hexproof. That was another big one when we were playing.
Yeah.
And
there was the like we talked about recently, there was the Blink deck, so board wipes wouldn't even matter with something like that.
Yeah, at our ass end of our tournament thing was when we were kind of doing I remember Drag Tusk and the Angel. Yeah.
Restoration Angel.
So it just wasn't a thing. I'm sorry, I'm contextualizing too much, but we just weren't prepared for something like Reese.
Yeah. So I got away with it. I produced a bunch of tokens.
You got away with it.
And you guys didn't have anything in your deck that was like, let's get rid of all the tokens.
So we take some medicine and we deal with that specific virus, which is very wide board states, with board wipes. So the board wipes go through the fucking roof. Everyone's got maybe 5 in their deck.
And we probably still see that to this day.
It got to the point where why even bother with spot removal? Just wait for somebody to overextend and just blow it all out. It was like that for a minute.
Yeah.
But then the second block came out, or the second gen came out, and along came Oloro and Nekusar, 2 very enchantment and artifact interested commanders.
Yes.
And a new virus was entering into our organism that wasn't being accounted for. So Nekusar specifically, it's all of the draw hate, so Spiteful Visions, Underworld Dreams, everything that basically punishes people for draw, Megrim. These are things that just the board wipe isn't going to answer.
Right.
Oloro brings a lot of life gain, where he just got so far out of reach.
I was already at like well over 50 life before you guys started doing anything.
Yeah, because of mostly enchantments. It's just over time, he's just value, and it becomes a grind. I don't ever remember being super threatened with the Oloro configs that we had.
No.
It was just really annoying. So that's where the whole, your whole saying goes. Always provision, enchant, and artifact hate. Because we had to learn that. That was one of our early rules that you had to learn in deck building. So, but if we're sticking with my analogy of our play group as an organism,
we needed to get inoculated.
We're not, but there's not enough room. Like we're not willing to, leave the board wipes at 5 and bring up the spot removals to 5.
Yeah,
the board wipes probably went down to 3 and 5.
Yeah, so you're probably right.
That's what's happening. So we're guarded against it. We know it when we see it, but it doesn't necessarily mean our decks are prepared for it.
Sure.
So I'm kind of talking about this year. So this year we got Galta coming around. And when Brad built his Galta deck, holy shit. I didn't see that vulnerability in our play group, but there was no Voltron going on.
No.
Sigarda was nowhere to be found. I didn't have anything going on with that. Like,
Yeah.
it was just, he just crushed us with this thing. It was like game after game after game, he just fucking stomped us with this big dinosaur. And all of our typical Voltron-y ways of dealing with things, you know, particularly like flesh bag marauders, things like that, it didn't work because he had a whole line of creatures. Weirdly, you need board wipes to get rid of Galta. You need to kill him and all of the things that are
Yeah.
reducing his cost.
Yeah.
So he was like, all right, the board wipe density's too low. We're too spaced into spot removal, because we were spot removing him like it was going out of style.
Well, but then he started to dial up his density of like instant speed hexproof spells.
What's really fucked up though about that is that he was already planning on it. He had a lot of those like withstand death and, you know, heroic interventions and things like. He was betting on that happening.
Yeah, he had it programmed
Because
in the deck.
he's the same vector, and he remembers that they're gonna respond, and I'm gonna just pre-respond. So there was a lot of games where he just resolve, and he'd just sit there, he'd be holding this huge grip of cards, and you're like, what the fuck is he holding these
Yeah,
cards
like, why
for?
isn't he playing out?
And then he'd win, because he'd just keep attacking. You know, he'd just win out. Like Galta crushes everybody, and that was that. And we're really early on, we couldn't set up. And then I'm like, fuck it, we gotta do something about this. Like we gotta do something, goddamn
Yeah.
it. So board wipes start coming up, and he's making him indestructible in response. Then spot removal comes up. Oh, he's giving him hexproof. Like, you just cannot fucking get rid of this guy. And then it just became the ultimate answer, which is a fever, which is everybody attacking it. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it takes us all collectively just to kind of hurry up and hold up his board state early, where he can't reduce the cost enough to make Galta viable, or at least
I remember
economic.
I remember specifically a couple games where Brad was in the process of setting up. He was getting out his cheap CMC large power creatures.
And you're like, I'm gonna fucking drop a board wipe. That's when I was putting Anger of the Gods in my red decks.
And I remember you and I having that discussion, and there were a couple players that maybe hadn't quite grasped that
Yeah.
was the strategy yet.
Yeah.
Like, don't deal with
he
Galta.
He gets so mad.
Deal with the prophecies that preempt Galta.
All of his little minions that are summoning him.
Yeah,
or her. I
they're
think it's a chick. I think
yeah.
it's a female. Yeah. But then Nakusar came back. You remember this?
Yes.
So I ran the table with Nakusar when it first came out, like every douchebag that likes Nakusar did back in the day anyway. Like, everybody was into that, you know? So I was like, okay, yeah, I remember actually selling a lot of the parts because I wasn't using them to AP. And it's so fucking crazy that I just forgot how. Maybe it was because I was never on the receiving end of it, you know? Like, I guess I was.
It's fucking nuts,
I was the
dude.
vector of that infection, not the infected.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't thinking. So I give him all the cards. They're the same pieces of cardboard that you've dealt with back in the day.
Yeah, like years ago.
So he drops in, and here we go, man. So we've corrected to try to deal with the Galta problem and the Saskia thing a little bit. Like, Brad's been challenging us through creatures because we've, you know, I'm not keeping track of the eras here, but I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah.
You were ready again, and you were really upset. You're like, this is why we're supposed to provision enchant and artifact.
Provision enchant.
He's like, we know this is how this shit goes. We know how this shit goes. You were just like, just upset. It was like we had just failed this litmus test, and you were just upset about it. And I'm like, dude, we haven't dealt with this freak for a while, man. We haven't
I remember
had this.
specifically one person didn't have
been like-
Croson Grip in their deck, like that runs green, and I was like,
Why do you not have?
how do you not have Croson Grip in your deck?
But that's my point here, is that this year we've been introduced new viruses into new viruses have been introduced, and again, like, we don't gain immunity. Like, yeah, we'll be aware of them. So another one was like, you remember the Marin era, where it was like, oh my god, it was fucking Marin town.
Yeah.
And then right after that, okay, sorry, it's not Carador, it's Carador.
Oh, Carador.
Rador. So there was that. It's graveyards. It's a graveyard problem. That's a hard one for us to deal with, because we have like this.
We have some house rules that are very friendly to graveyard decks.
We do have house rules that are friendly to graveyard decks.
Like, if you want to play graveyard decks and get off, come play with us.
Yeah. But I think some things that were born this year was because of these like viroids getting into our. So my 8.5 tails deck. So my 8.5 tails deck isn't like your Voltron setup or your Stacks setup. I don't know if Stacks is super popular, but he makes sense.
It's something
for
that
it.
makes sense.
Yeah, because they want to remove that permanent, and you ain't gonna let them like that winter orb or static orb.
Yeah.
But mine is basically dig in, set up enchantments that make it difficult for your life total to be affected, like, you know, and a lot of them come with that, like Storied Circle, things like that.
Yeah.
And then just keep a big card like Galta out. Like Galta just gets brought to its knees against 8.5 tails because he just can't get it in my life. He can't get in my life total. Pretty much he has to find a Krosan Grip or I'm going to protect everything he tries to remove. And his deck isn't really provisioned to deal with answers.
Yeah,
he wants to be
he's
a
the
problem. Yeah, he's the problem. He's not the answer to anything.
Yeah.
His way of dealing with things was to engage in player
Nobody's
destruction.
calling Galta our Lord and Savior.
Yeah, so I played that deck and it thrived very well because we had Yidris, who needed a combat step and could not get one off of me anymore.
Right.
And eventually what falls into like a 1v1 situation because he doesn't really win through wheel effects. He wins through a ton of zombies or something.
Yeah.
And then, the Galta thing, like, we'd get down to a 1v1 and they were like, fuck, I can't do anything.
I can't even attack you.
He keeps nerfing everything I throw at him. So that was my list, but it overcorrected. It doesn't help the game along when those decks are not around. It has a very hard time interacting with, it has a classic white problem, right? Like, I don't fall into a lot of answers very quickly. I need to go out of my way to find draw engines.
Yeah.
The other thing is if people are going too wide, it's hard to deal with too. If I don't find the ghostly prison or I don't know, I'm going to work on that.
True.
I still like the vision of the deck.
It's a good deck. I think it's effective in what it does. It just it feels like there's maybe some blind.
It's
spots.
a bit of a counter pick. Like people get annoyed because they see me counter pick. The only reason I play 8.5 is because I see Galta waiting or I see Yidris or some kind of commander.
That's like me with Phenax. I won't play Phenax against many different commanders.
Yeah, like Lazav or Sidisi.
Yeah, I'm not helping you out.
Yeah, you're not really helping me out. But I don't know. I kind of noticed that over this year where we had some stuff come back, and I'm like, we should be dealing with this, but it's not. It doesn't really work that way.
Well, no, it doesn't, right? Because you only have 99 cards you can put into your deck, and you got to make choices.
Yeah.
You know what's bizarre to me is I've found this come up. I think it was EDH Recast or one of those that tweeted something about like the average commander deck on EDH Rec has something like 33 lands in it.
That's really low.
Like really low. And so they were talking about or having a discussion about don't cut lands from your list.
Wait,
that's astounding to me.
33 is the average?
The average.
So
meaning
there are
people
decks
are
out
running
there
a
that
lot
are below
lower.
it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy? Like we always feel like we're running low when we're putting 35 in our list. Like that's usually your baseline for you and I think is 35.
So I think it's this is again just my anecdotal observation. I think it's two things. One, a lot of people will recognize this right away. You get a new card and you want to make room for it.
Yes.
So you peel a mountain out of your deck or something like that.
See, I've literally never done that.
I've done it.
I'm always like something has to go.
That's why I don't go over 99, man. Like I have people send me deck lists that are 105, 120 and they want cuts and I'm like, I can't do that because I become emotionally attached to the idea of this card functioning the way I idealize it.
Right.
So I won't allow myself. When I make a deck, the first thing I block out is 36 lands and 10 mana sources.
Mm-hmm.
And if the CMC of the commander is higher, I'll tool it up to maybe 38. So I start pretty high on the mana count, but those slots are like taken. Like I don't want to think about moving them around, so those are taken. And then I try to work out some of the card draw that I think is befitting the commander or the strategy I'm going for. So if it's a big green deck, I'm going to be like, okay, well, there's Rishkar's expertise, like things that fit the. I want to play to the strengths of the deck. I fit the card draw around the strengths of the deck. I don't. Well, it's blue. I gotta have Rhystic Study. It's like, well, I have Nezahal as the commander. I really need to annoy everybody with fucking Rhystic Study. Also, I want to keep it in this other deck over here, and it's approaching $20 now, I think. So
yeah.
Then I move on to the card draw. But I really, as soon as I get to 100, I'm like,
that's it.
I gotta stop. I gotta make cuts now. Replace. This is why I make cuts, but it's when I get to 120, dude, I can't work it out. I can't do it.
Yeah.
So there's that. So people get a new card or whatever, and they just think, well, whatever. I'll just, I'm never starved for lands when I play this deck. So
yeah, what's one
so
gonna
what's
do?
one gonna do? And then eventually, like, yeah,
They've done that
approaching
3 or 4
33.
times, and
So
whoops.
here's my other thought, and I could be wrong. I think there's 2 things that stick out, or maybe 3 things that stick out when it comes to visiting the Commanderverse on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
When you're not looking at EDHREC, when you're not looking at something that aggregates,
Oh, sure.
averages and parses everything together.
Yeah.
One is the budget side of things. That seems to be very popular.
Mm-hmm.
So if you visit the content Commanderverse and Tapped Out and things like that, they're very explicit about what this deck is doing. It's budget. So you'll go to Tapped Out, it'll say so-and-so, it'll have a clever name, so-and-so's Psycho Dildo Circus budget. And that's what it is. So you go, okay, well, I'm gonna view this through the lens of a budget. And either you were going there to find it, or you just stumbled over it and you're like, oh, okay, cool. And
Yeah.
the guy does his primer and convinces you that the deck is worth buying and why you would like it and why you wouldn't, and you go out and do it.
Sure.
The middle part is decks that are, and this is probably where I'm landing more often, is they're clever, they're different. So they're a convoluted strategy. You would not have thought of this for the commander, and you're going out of your way to do it, and this is the point of it. So like one that sticks out is I saw one that was about Nizan, the cat.
Uh-huh.
It was called Nizan Spy Kitty, and the whole deck was built around just getting the Spy Kit into play and messing with creature types. That's the whole fucking deck. And it was a stretch to win.
Sure.
But you could see it. You could see how it would work out.
It's there.
But it's there. So there's those. And then there's the other side, which is the competitive CEDH, lab maniacs, motherfucker. Like it's just full bore all the way down to the ground.
Yeah.
But I really, and again, this is me just kind of guessing. I'm just running off of intuition here, not sensory information. My bet is if you look at those decks, the land count is lower.
Yeah,
But
because
people aren't really going out and spending $2,000 or whatever on Moxes. So they're running the very, very lean, very, very expensive mana development cards like Mox Opal, all the Mox whatever's, Mox, Mix Mox, like all of those
Sure.
are in there. And that's how the deck can get off.
survive having fewer lands.
Yeah, it can survive having fewer lands because it has an extremely expensive mana
development.
mana acceleration.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking, because I've looked at decks and I'm like, really? They only have 34 lands? And then I look at it, I'm like, oh, he's got fucking Mana Crypt in there and all these. Like, maybe you could if any one of those is in your. Oh, it's got Ancient Tomb. Like, these were expensive cards.
Yeah.
And yeah, if they're in your opening hand, the lands are actually kind of getting in your way.
Yeah, you only need
quick.
2 lands in your
Pretty
hand
quick,
if that's
and
the case.
and the overall curve of competitive decks is lower.
It is
so
lower.
to just make a blanket statement that, oh well, everyone everywhere isn't running enough lands. It's
That's a
like,
good
well,
point.
maybe we need to see what's in the deck next to the lands. Like, how many of these decks below the 33 point or around the 33 point are running these fast ass mana cards?
That's a super good point.
And what's their curve? Because if you look at competitive EDH decks, the curve's lower. It's lower.
Well, yeah, because it all needs to happen within a few turns, right?
Yeah. I mean, you experienced that at
Yeah,
the GP.
yeah.
When you were in the
Won
tournament.
my first game, and I got matched up against some very competitive decks in round 2.
But every time you were like, I had one more turn to hit it and I was going to pop off.
Yeah,
And
it
I-
was
and
usually
every
something like a
time-
Mox or a Mana.
But the guy
Mana
who did
Vault
get
or
it,
Mana
he was
Crypt.
one. Yeah, he had something out early.
Yeah.
And that's why he took it.
Yeah,
It was a
exactly.
it's a game of speed. It's not a.
Yeah, it is.
It's just, all right, I popped off.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, that's my. That's my thought. But I have increased my land count lately.
So have I.
I was
actually.
getting pretty lean with it, but again, it's because we've slowed the meta down.
Yeah, and I mean,
And the new mulligan. That's
Yeah,
the
the-
old
the-
mulligan, but it definitely affected things. There was decks that my slow bad deck, I can't make it work. I'd have to get some of these. I'd have to get more of these expensive mana rocks
in order to make it
to get
function.
it back into a functional space like it was when I played it back
Yeah,
3 years ago.
yeah.
But with the disbanding of Partial Paris, like, you can't really sculpt your hand anymore, And I get why. It definitely was a sculptor's game back then, and you could run with lower land counts, but that really changed things for me.
No, it
The
absolutely.
fact that I
did.
have to blow the whole hand and go down, and I get the
Yeah, whatever's there.
the token scry one, I guess. Like, yeah.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Well, should we talk about some decks that we actually put into sleeves and brought to the table?
Yeah, man, go first. I feel like I've been yammering for a minute.
No, I mean, I dig your point though about being discerning as to why the land count is where it is. That it's not a hard and fast rule of where you need to be. There's reasons why you can be at different levels with your land count.
I think people are smart. Like, I think people have an idea of what to do.
Yeah, and to me, the data wouldn't say that. Like, it wouldn't reflect the first thing you brought up of, oh, I got a new card, I'm just going to take a mountain out and put this card in. People aren't putting those lists that they accidentally took out 3 cards.
Yeah, they don't
online.
Yeah,
like,
I seriously doubt they're going online and updating it. Well, let me drop the mana count. Like, I think everyone has a sense of that's a no-no. They want to just roll the dice and
right.
go, yeah, maybe I'm just getting lucky. I don't fucking know. I'm getting away with it.
It's happening.
I'm getting away with it. And they don't really update their list. And I don't. There's too much. I think that's the thing about EDH Rec is that you can make not dangerous, but you can make just global blanket statements about, well, this is just what people are doing. It's like, well, yeah, I guess. Like, but how many people are uploading their deck? How many people are updating their deck?
Yeah.
Even content creators, like, dude, I was flipping through some of ours. I'm like, man, I don't even run any of this stuff. Sorry, but
yeah,
some of it's old. Like the Gonti deck that's on our tapped out, it has a completely different little mini engine running in it now that it wasn't back then.
And that's funny. And like, I mean, our Vivictus episode, I did this like Thievery Corp list and I built a completely...
It never happened.
I built a completely different list.
It never happened. It was complete false advertising.
Yeah, I was like, this is a cool idea.
I remember sitting down like, okay, here's my shit. It's going to get stolen and sacrificed. And none of that happened.
Yeah, I just made tokens that had no value to me and sacked those and got new stuff.
That was easier.
It was a lot easier.
All right, deck time.
All right, some decks. So because we're content creators, I think we've spent a lot more time deck building
than the rest of our people.
And plus, more than we have in the past ever, you know?
True.
I actually put my list together and I was like, holy shit, I've built a lot of decks. And there's a lot of decks that we talked about on the show that we only play tested in completely legal digital formats. All right. Let me talk about some. One of the first ones that I built this year was actually the Scorpion God.
How'd that go?
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So the Scorpion God actually has some really cool combos in it that I did get to experience. And I did enjoy them because they're not like, they're weird. You know, you're dealing in +1 or -1/-1 counters and trying to deal in death with your... I built around the idea of trying to build a lot of tokens into my deck so I could be the person controlling when the Scorpion God got its trigger.
Dude, he's so metal.
He is he's fucking metal.
He's so metal.
And in the story, like, he fucks shit up, dude.
Stingeredly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty
He's
cool.
Fucking dope.
So are you going to retire it or what's...
I still have it sitting in a box in sleeves. I've been looking at maybe doing one last, like, just deck edit to it.
Okay, do you think you could budgetize it and it would function better?
I think it might be able to.
Doesn't have higher power decks to compete against?
I think it might be able to because like I said, there are some very functional combos in that deck.
Okay.
That have gotten me to where I've had games where I had like 20 cards in hand off of the Scorpion God's draw because I could just kind of like chain off getting tokens and getting -1/-1 counters on everything and controlling the board. But
okay, so maybe that will be your plan for it?
Maybe.
Okay. My turn?
Yeah.
Let's just bounce back.
Let's bounce back and forth.
So I already talked about 8.5 Tails.
Yeah.
I love it. I love
it's been one of your favorites this year, I think.
It's one of those ones I gotta figure it out, man. I gotta figure out how to do it without doing a Voltron. I just don't want to do Voltron, and I don't want to do the arms race thing and go get the Winter Orb and punish people for not playing white, not playing mono white, like just really dragging the party down with me. Talked about that one. So it's a fix. It's on the workbench.
Okay.
That one. A new one would be I made the Queen Marquisa list that we talked about last year. I finally built it this year.
Yeah,
And
you built it this year.
I love it. Love the deck.
Yeah, it's I think one of the more interesting ones that gets brought to the table. It's very interactive.
Yeah, people love her, and it ain't a meme. Like she's like I've said before, she's a very elegant card. Her design is very elegant. I love Queen Marquisa. Love her.
She's a very elegant lady.
Love her. Okay.
Okay, Sachi, daughter of Sashiro.
Where are we with that one?
So I did build this deck out. It's very weird because in terms of experience, it's one of those where like I just feel like, man, I stood up too fast. I got a lot of blood rush into my head right now because you just get so much mana so fast. It's really cool to me. I enjoy it a lot. I actually just updated it recently to be a part of our budget league, so I stripped out all of the expensive components.
Do you think it'll hang better within this environment?
I think it will, because my experience with Sachi was when I won most consistently was just simply off of a Genesis wave.
Okay.
I just get shit tons of mana and I dump out so many permanents and everybody would be like,
it's a big green wave of winning.
Yeah, everybody's like, wow, I'm on turn 4.
Okay.
So, you know, like but it'll be in our budget league coming up pretty soon. And
All right.
I think it'll have a better chance of being able to win. And I've kind of changed up some of the win cons of it. So it should be interesting to experience in a different way.
Okay. I did Niv Mizzet Perrin this year.
Ooh.
I love him. Love the guy. Love every iteration of him. I love Niv Mizzet. He's you hear about him almost every episode from me because I'm a Izzet weeaboo.
And Andy has like a Niv Mizzet pillow that he cuddles with at night, body pillow.
I wish. I wish I had a Niv Mizzet body pillow. Just take my clothes off, stand in front of it, and hope he's not displeased. Yeah, I love it. It wasn't really difficult to build because I just kind of converted over the old formula for Niv Mizzet the Firemind and added some, you know, lower to the ground cantrippy kind of stuff. I just like the interaction that comes with challenging him.
Yeah.
I love when people are like, well, I'm going to counter this. I see it. I draw a card. And like it just starts spiraling into, I'm just giving him fucking cards for trying to do anything with instances or sorceries. So he's dope. I'm not going to change him. I'm going to leave him. Definitely put the foot down all the way with, you know, the deck sleeves, the Izzet lands.
Yeah,
from
the guild kit lands.
Yeah, all of that. The play mat, like he's completed, I think. I've completed him even on the bling side of things.
Yeah, like sailors get the mom tattoo on their arms. Like Andy's got a heart and Niv Mizzet on his.
Dude, write that down. I'm going to get that done. New Year's resolution.
New Year's resolution.
Okay, what else from you?
So we did an episode, one of our first episodes, I talked about Unesh Cryosphinx Sovereign.
Okay.
And I ended up building that this year. It's funny because we
that was this year?
Yeah, it was like right around the beginning of the year, maybe right at the end of last year.
Okay.
It's been an interesting deck.
I'll allow it.
I'll
allow it. You can continue to talk about it.
Anyways, it's sort of one of those decks that I think has it's in the process of running its course out. Each time I play it, people are kind of a little over it.
Well, it's just, you know, you play Sphinx, we have to factor fiction.
Yeah, everybody gets it's like I'm showing all of my cards to everybody. Guys, have you seen my deck? Do you want to look at my deck? Look at my deck, dude.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, want to see my deck? Are you done looking at my deck? Here's some more cards. Look at these cards.
So is it heading towards the chopping block, the workbench?
So I actually did an update to it recently where I changed out probably about 10 cards. The experience is largely the same. Go figure.
10 cards and it's exactly the fucking same. So what's the plan?
I think I'm going to play it a few more times probably. I expect it's probably going to start gathering dust.
Headed towards the chopping block.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. Virtus and Gorm.
Ooh. Tell me about that one, Andy.
God, I love these two guys, man. I just can't fucking figure it out.
They're cool in theory.
Am I just like an idiot? Do I just know how to do this? I don't know how to make this work, man.
I think the Jumbo Commander just put out an episode about it, so you should probably need to go check that out.
I looked at it, and
did you?
It's all. Has he played with these guys? Like what they do? You know, I love the guy, but like, yeah, I have to wonder if it's like, how it's working. You know. Oh, and also I should say this. He said it was a budget list, and his budget's at $20. So the floor is pretty
That's
far down.
pretty low
But
there.
mine is too. But of course, my budget, you know, our budget limit's $75. Like
Yeah,
we're
I
a
mean,
little snobby with
yeah.
that. But I tried it, and what ends up happening is, yeah, I'm just begging people not to remove this 1/1 because I didn't want to do make Virtus unblockable .deck.
Yeah.
I said that a bunch of times. I wanted to make. I really liked the combat interaction with Gorm attacking and pulling people into his fight, and while this other guy, I love the idea of the tank and the rogue, the
Yeah.
DPS and the tank kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I hit you, and I have to like beg you to not remove it so I can get at the health total of the other people. So you'll buy in, I'll pivot and go after the next person, and they're not just going to let it happen. And now they've had a whole extra turn to develop defenses because I was focusing on you, and it's
Right.
usually you. And I used some resources to finally get him in and get the hit in. So now they're at half. So now both of you are just like, okay, so when are you going to hit the third person? But by now, because I spent so long on the second guy, like I can't get to the third person to cut their life total in half. And if I do, now I'm fucking public enemy. My health total is probably
It's
in
like,
a good
well-
space. And now everyone's pissed. And I'm like, okay, well, now I'm going to swing back around to you, Kyle. And you're like, fuck, no, I ain't going to 10. I ain't going to 10. And now you've developed, because I haven't really interacted with any of your permits. All I did was,
No, you just cut my life total in half.
yeah, you know, I just cut your life total in half. That's it.
It's no big deal, Kyle. It's no big deal, man.
Yeah. So the deck is on the workbench. I think what I'm leaning towards is it's got to be like I kind of removed like the other combat trigger people because I thought, well, you know, why let Virtus or Gorm's ability go to waste? Let me put stuff that also likes to deal combat.
Yeah.
Fuck it, dude. Fuck it. Like, why? You got a guy who cuts their life total in half, and that's the one they're worried about. They're not worried about the Spawn Wraith. They're not worried about that. They're worried
no.
about Virtus. You're gonna
Right.
you don't even want to waste time doing that. I'd rather have my mana up where I'm developing more defenses for my two guys.
That's
So
yeah.
it's a tall order. You got a Voltron deck that's on 2 different cards. So
that is a big order.
and yeah, I'm also operating in our, you know, in quotations budget, not $20, which
Sure.
you know, I should withhold judgment. $20 is
If you,
it's ambitious. That's really low.
That's a lot of work.
Mine's 75, and it's still there's cards I want. There's cards I was like, man, I really. So it might actually go the opposite direction. If I can see it, like if I can see this thing working, maybe if I really, really, really am addicted to the idea, or sorry, married to the idea of having these two as main commanders that stay in sleeves,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll convert them over to
A space
outside.
where they can have whatever cards.
But
they
then
need.
again, I bought the problem of having to face decks that are now more prepared for their bullshit.
Yeah. Well, they're interesting.
Yeah.
Like I talk shit on them all the time, but I'm actually very intrigued by Virtus and Gorm. I think they just present a problem that's sort of unique to in Commander. It's Voltron-esque, but not quite.
Yeah, I think one thing that you want to keep in frame with them is when you drop their life total down, other effects now it's not like Volt Commander damage, like where, well, you know, I can life gain out of it, like, or not life gain out of it, but they're it's different. Like everyone else becomes more threatening too because your overall life total is less.
Yeah.
And then yeah, like the deck can threaten things like Torment to Hailfire and Exsanguinate. Like there's
Yeah, if you get people low enough, those cards matter.
they'll close the game out.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're not even hitting them anymore with these two, and now you're just waiting. So yeah,
Got
All right,
everybody there.
You got any others?
I got a bunch. I made a bunch this year.
Dude, me too. Let's keep going.
All right, Tashar, Ancestor's Apostle. This is one that
Ooh, this one had a voyage a little bit.
it had a voyage. So I built it and I took it to GP Vegas. And that's the place it's actually seen its most play.
Have you remember? Was it a Dr. Seuss book that was "Are You My Mother"? Do you remember that? It was like this kid's book where it was like a little bird.
It just goes
And it
around.
hatched.
I don't think it was Dr. Seuss, but it was very Dr. Seuss
It was
like.
yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It
Yeah.
hatched, and it's like
Goes around and
incompetent-
asks like a tractor, "Are you my mother?"
Yeah, its incompetent white trash mother was nowhere to be found on day of hatch. So it came out and it was like it was just looking for its mother. And yeah, it would like walk around to different objects or people. Did it encounter any human beings?
I don't remember humans in it.
But yeah, it would ask different things. Are you my mom? And it's like, do I look like your fucking mother? That
I'm a goddamn fox.
That's Tashar's voyage.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right.
That's what Tashar experienced this year. He's looking for his mom.
So yeah, I did take it to GP Vegas, faced off with some kind of competitive decks.
Are you my mother competitive EDH?
Right. Are you my mother?
And
it was like you mentioned, like you alluded to, I seemed to be a turn behind other competitive decks.
was that because Tashar or your lack of mana crypts?
My
Moxes, and-
lack of mana crypts and things like that, I think, is part of it. But I also think, even still, I think Tashar might be a little behind the curve with some other competitive decks. I just think it would be.
Okay.
But it's still Tashar for me was just like a really awesome experience because I've never done artifacts. And you and I did our mono white episode. I was really high on mono white. This seemed like a good way to
High on
actually
mono white.
do it.
So Coke.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of coke. Yeah, and I built it, and it was one of those that I had a lot of features in it that allowed me to win at instant speed.
Okay.
So I could kind of piece it together when I needed to. For our play group,
Are
Only
you
if-
my mother, Kyle and Andy's play group?
yeah, and I'm actually not sure. I very reluctantly bring it to the table ever at this play group. Because I'm like, what are people going to think of me when this thing happens? Because it
So
can,
it's like some crazy pageant. Like,
Yeah,
what are
it
they gonna
can-
think.
yeah, it can go off while everybody else is still setting up. And so in order to justify that, I transitioned it to where it didn't have any instant speed combos in it. Everything had to happen at sorcery speed.
So
in it.
people could interrupt you.
So that people could interrupt me, and like there might be instant speed components in it, but it all had to take place on my turn, and my win cons were all just basically creating tokens.
Dude, I have to wonder what our audience thinks of our attitude towards playing this game. Like,
I know, right?
wait,
Like,
you guys slow shit down. Like this whole, like, it's come up a bunch of times just on this episode. Like,
we slow shit down
they slow shit down
because we want an experience, right?
yeah.
I was telling you recently, I think that I've come to the realization that the way that I want games to end, because I think everybody wants games to end in a different way. They all have a vision in their mind of how they want
it's going
games
to close
end.
out.
And I think what I really want most of all is I want for whoever wins to collapse across the finish line. Everybody has spent out all their resources possible, and somebody just barely eked it out. They have 4 life left.
I like that too.
And I've kind of realized that's the
I
like
like
of
that
game
idea.
that I really like.
I want the Rocky Balboa, Rocky 4 winning. where
Yeah,
he's
like,
just
somebody had to cut
beaten
your
within
eyebrow
an inch of his
open.
death. Yeah, beaten within inches of his life, and even the audience now loves him. Even the Russian populace is now fans of him.
So
right.
I've got Tashar where I don't know. I remember watching this documentary years ago where it was talking about people. It was before the internet like swelled us all with information. So things like yoga and tantric sex were all kind of like mysterious. And it was these swinger groups that would all get it. They were all into tantric sex, and they were like, and they all talked about fucking without getting to orgasm.
Wait, what? That's what that means?
Well, not necessarily, but that's like an element that might be a part of tantric sex. And I remember these middle-aged white swingers talking about it, and me just being like teenage me just being like, I gotta come, dude. But this is kind of what I've done with Tashar.
I mean, when you're a teenager, that's not the time for something new. Like,
Right. But this is
not
what
the time for.
this
a
is what I've
new
done with
kind of-
Tashar. I've made it so that Tashar is fucking without coming. Like he's just like, I've made a bunch of tokens. Can you deal with me before my next turn? That's where that deck is.
I liked my Dr. Seuss book analogy. You're a fucking pervert.
Okay, give me your next deck, dude.
All right, so Nezahal.
Ooh, Nezahal, dude.
Nezahal Primal Tide. So he kind of got bumped over early. I built him around kind of like this artifact. I don't want to say prison, but it was, like Pendril Mist was in the deck.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to punish other creatures, so I was like, all right, I'm only going to control this big dino fish, and I'm going to make it difficult for other people to hold on to their creatures, and I'm just going to try to get in.
Yeah.
Make it difficult for them to hold them or untap or whatever. It worked. It just was expensive. A lot of the parts in the deck I needed for other ventures. So I took it apart. Then we decided to do the we're saying again, the budget league thing.
Yeah.
And I remember back in a time and place long ago and far away, Brad's Tempo Tromocratus.
Yeah, I was going to say it was
list.
very inspired by
So,
Tromocratus.
Yeah,
I think.
Tromocratus is an 8/8, same mana range. If any of your creatures are tapped, he just can't be blocked. So either you must commit all of them to blocking him or none of them.
Yeah.
And also, I think he's hexproof as long as he's untapped.
Yeah.
So similar,
or not in combat or something like that, right?
something like that. Yeah. So yeah, similar line of thinking. So my idea was to resolve for this version of it was to resolve Nezahal, not really pump him up because he's already a 7/7, but use Blue's strength of just very low end mana to bounce things out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
Absent Cyclonic Rift because it's against the rules in this
Yeah,
in this
the context.
formatting that we're trying to do. Yeah, I like the deck a lot. It's fun to play. I like Nezahal as a card, as a commander. I want to say I wish he wasn't 7 mana, but I almost like that he's just so expensive. You know, I don't know. He's cool, man. It's a cool deck. If I wanted to make any changes to it, I don't know. I think I'm leaning on the bounce pretty hard. I think it kind of annoys people, and it's not necessary.
Yeah.
I find myself bouncing stuff before he's even in play to delay people.
Yeah.
They're having to redevelop while I'm still moving towards getting him out. But I don't know. I might not be able to get away without that because of the mana requirement. And then once he's out, just the card advantage that still comes my way. If he was any cheaper, he'd be really, really broke. If he was like 4 mana.
Oh my gosh, dude.
You know, and let's say he was even just like a 4/4 for 4, like he'd be harder to deal because that's when people are developing mana rocks and getting some of their
Yeah.
their Panharmonicons and things like that into the game, and he's just drawing cards off of that. Like, and then all you got to do is slap an Imperial Armor on him,
Yeah.
and upsy daisy, and he still has that weird way of dodging removal. That's the other cool thing is it's just like I like the thematics of him diving down underwater where nobody can get him, when they attempt to remove him. Okay, you got another one?
Yeah, so I did this kind of is going to encapsulate a couple. So I built an enchantments deck around Atraxa for Atraxable at GP Vegas.
Oh yeah, this is another one that had kind of a voyage.
Yeah, it was, so there were some cards that were given to me that I had to program into my deck, which not everybody that played in Atraxable did that.
Oh, everyone followed the rules exactly how they were supposed to be followed. What are you talking about?
But anyways, I had some cards that I programmed into it. It was a really fun deck to play at GP Vegas.
We had a good time.
The way I structured it, I enjoyed what I accomplished there. But I retooled it a bit, kept it in the same color typing, but I have Thrasios and Ravos at the helm of it, and I just really enjoy playing an enchantments deck with the 4 colors. It's been especially really nice. Like I made the transition to the partner commanders after GP Vegas, and then when we got Commander 2018, I programmed some pieces into the deck from that as well. Because I think enchants decks, unless you're playing something like Sigarda where you're doing Voltron auras, they have a hard time closing the game.
This was
out.
like pre-Estrid and pre.
Yeah, so I had a
Tuvasa.
pre-Estrid and Tuvasa. So I had programmed I programmed a couple of those into the deck, just to make it get a little closer to finishing the game out faster.
Okay.
But it's still together. It's like I said, I really like the colors. I haven't played it in that construct that much, but I like having 4 colors available to me, specifically those 4 colors available to me for an Enchantress deck.
So it's a keep.
It's a keep.
You're not gonna
Yeah, I'm keeping
send
it
it to the
moving
shop
forward.
or the block.
Nope.
Felden.
Oh yeah.
That I don't know why no one really landed on him. He's
I've
been around for
very
long
excited
enough.
to see him.
I think I avoided it because I didn't want to have 2 out of the same pre-con. I felt like that might be.
Yeah, because you've been Duretti heavy for a long time.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. But
Gotta have the Goblin
I
Coat.
didn't really go
Goblin
on
Coat.
that, and I don't know. I wanted a mono red commander for the budget experiment, and he fits into that very well. Most of the cards that he values are, you know people say it like they're just big cheap red creatures that are 20 cents.
Yeah.
So he was easy to accomplish. I think there's not a lot of I think the only thing separating my deck from any other deck that wasn't following the same budget ideas is like Blood Moon.
Sure.
Like that's the stuff that costs money to get him out of that. But,
Big deal, dude.
yeah. Any more from you?
I have a bunch more.
How many have we done this year, my dude?
I've done a lot.
Okay, what's
I'm
the
like
next?
halfway through my list, dude.
What? I'm running. Okay,
You're running out. Do I need to do a couple in a row here?
Okay, yeah. Give me 2.
So I actually, I'm gonna lump a couple together in this one. So I did an Eiley Eternal Pilgrim deck.
Was that this year?
I think it was the beginning of this year.
Okay.
If not, it might have been the end of last year, but I'm pretty sure it was early this year.
Since I can't remember, I'll allow it.
Okay. Anyways, it's Orzhov's deck problems, right?
Sure.
Like there's specific combos that you want to accomplish. I'm not opposed to combos as much as I used to be. I was more of a like, let's have synergies, let's have just overwhelming board states was kind of my style of play.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to combos as much as I used to be, but I didn't have the experiences I wanted to as much with Eiley. So I transitioned that to Regna and Krav when they became available from Battle Bond.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I've enjoyed them as commanders a lot more. It's still like I don't have a high.
You know, it's Teysa without the Teysa.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm able to be a little more aimless, but still feel like I'm doing something with
Cool.
Regna and Krav.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a high win percentage with them, but they can get really, really threatening,
Uh,
and I enjoy it.
yeah.
So they're staying just where they are. Speaking of partners from Battle Bond, I also built Will and Rowan Kenrith.
Oh yeah.
There is some tweaking I think I need to do with that deck in terms of just making it really hard for people to establish creatures.
Yeah, because we don't.
No,
That's definitely a virus.
nobody
You
wants
landing
to see
4 comet storms on everybody was.
Yeah, I think
something
I
that we
had
don't wanna
something
see
like
again.
180 damage available with that one spell. So
Yeah, I was not happy about that. I was
Yeah.
furious actually,
yeah.
because I've never been able to pull something like that off in all my spell slinging. I was furious.
All right, they're staying. I mean, aside from some editing to try and like get them, to where there's creatures less readily available
Okay.
to people.
And then
that's
speaking of
better.
Orzhov, you did Kambal.
I did do-
do we already talk about him?
No, we haven't brought him up. So
Well, he's in 2 gameplay videos. There's that.
he is in 2 gameplay videos. So I did Kambala because this one is actually very interesting. The reason I built this deck was because to do a little color balancing in our budget league. For a minute there, we were seeing a lot of black and blue. I think there's a lot of red in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the budget roster right now, because I'm keeping track. It's 16% white, 15% blue, 20% black, 24% red, and 22% green.
Yeah, so white's not very well represented in our budget league.
Surprise.
And so, yeah, white by itself is really hard to. I mean, hello, welcome to Magic the Gathering Commander. Like white's really hard to play by itself in Commander, but Kambal was really a decision to do that, and also to kind of punish a little bit of the red because there's just so much life gain that happens that it makes it a little bit harder to close the game unless everybody's playing red. Then I'm fucked.
Yeah, that one game that we have. Should I do one now?
Yeah, hit me up with another one.
I feel like we're opening presents, right? Going back and forth.
Oh, I know, right?
Dude,
Well,
at Tiff's Christmas thing, they don't do that. Does your family do that? Do they take turns opening gifts?
yeah, so there'd be a person that would be like passing gifts out to, and we'd watch like everybody's focus.
So
would be
you
like,
have to, you're kind of forced to like be fake, over the top appreciative. of
whoa, that's so cool.
stuff like that, and then but they don't do that, man. She'll just hand you a pile of gifts. Like her mom just hands, Tiff and then her sister and then like everybody in the room different piles, including me. Like she's very generous. Like I've never had that from, I'm just dating her, but like
Sure.
someone's mother but that's it. And then everyone just tears into them. And then I remember like going, how is anyone enjoying like, so I was kind of waiting to see if that's what was going to happen, if we were going to do that like back and forth. And then Tiff like moved on to her second and then her third one. I'm like, oh fuck, I'm going to be the only guy with gifts. And I ain't about to be the only person in this room opening presents in front of all these people because I have a hard time with shit like that.
Yeah, like don't want
already.
the attention.
Yeah, I don't like that. So I just started drilling through them and I'm trying to like talk over everybody and say, be appreciative, like, hey, you
And
know,
they're all just like in their own
Evelyn,
thing.
this is great. Like, oh, I'm gonna put this, you know, and I kind of talk about I don't know, maybe it's just how my family is. Like,
Yeah.
everyone shut up. Kyle's opening his gift. You know, like
Okay, guys, here we go.
yeah, anyway, sorry, we fucking derailed. Joda, the new Joda. So I don't like 5-color. I don't like 5-color.
And the funny thing is I think you're the person that's done it the most in our group.
So I feel like I'm not an authority, but I don't like 5-color because I have this feeling that just the more colors you throw at something, like the more of you just gotta go for the best cards in those color.
Yeah, oblige the color.
That color. Oblige the color, yeah. Like you gotta have your obligatory unmake or anguished unmaking, and you gotta have your obligatory Winds Grace's Judgment, I guess, is now like the better putrefy. But
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like they all add up, and after a while, like you're just, where's your identity? It's by definition the most identity diffuse color identity.
It is totally diffuse.
So I originally started with Ramos Dragon Engine, and oh my god, man, like I really wanted this thing to work. So a lot of Ramos decks, is it Ramos? I don't fucking know, but
let's nitpick.
So there's a lot of charms. Like that's like the thing is like they really
you have them all available.
Yeah, the charms are awesome. They're flexible. They're kind of in the moment. A lot of them have a lot of removal options, but you know, you resolve a charm, he gets that many counters. Like specifically, is it Jund Charm and Abzan Charm? He goes right up to 5 counters, and then you can unleash the 5 counters and grab your 10 mana.
Dope.
Like that. It seemed awesome to me.
Yeah, and like you don't want to pass that up.
But you guys let that happen once. I never could keep this guy out to save my life, and he's an artifact. So green and red was just bashing him to pieces. Like
he's vulnerable
to
everything.
Will exile him. Like they made him the right creature type they made him the right card because of how just quickly he can, and he's 6 mana. So the whole game, like you're spending a good
trying
part
to
of the
get
game,
there,
and then you're holding on cards. Like there were times where I was like, I really don't want to use this charm right now, but I better. Okay, I'm exiling your graveyard with Rakdos Charm, or but I'm not getting the counters out of it.
Yeah, because my commander's not even out yet.
Yeah, I just, like you gotta ride this dragon. Like he's awesome. I love dragons and I love robots.
It's everything Andy dreams
robots
of.
in theory. I don't know if I like them in practice, but yeah, like. So I just switched it over to Joda, paired out all of the charms, and I'm like, I'm just going to do big dumbass sorceries. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do big CMC tribal. I just want big clunky sorceries, which, even if you look at like big CMC tribal, which is kind of seems like the baseline for him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of big sorceries. Like they just pump them in there. What I've noticed is that you really actually only resolve 1 spell a turn. Like,
because you can't quite get to that threshold.
You need 10.
Of having 10.
You need your 10th mana to get 2 spells a turn.
Right.
Two big spell a turn. But some of these spells are just so like Brilliant Ultimatum. Like that thing is bonkers with him. It's a fact or fiction where they choose a pile that you will resolve altogether.
Yeah,
like
it's nuts.
But it doesn't. You don't see it in a lot of decks because it's
a lot of mana.
It's a lot of fucking mana, and it's a lot of mana, my dude. So. He's cool. I'm going to keep him. He's in, again, we've kind of getting sick of talking about it, but he's configured around our new budget.
Yeah.
It's
our budget league deck.
Our budget league that we're doing. So yeah, he's keeping. Plus he's a wizard. I'll take what I can get.
If there's one thing Andy loves more than dragons, it's wizards.
It's true. It's true. I do love wizards in practice and in theory.
Put a wizard on a dragon's back and Andy will see you in a week.
Well, there's just Niv Mizzet, who's a dragon wizard. Motherfucker! All right. Okay, what's your next card?
Vivictus Osmati the Dire. We talked about this a little bit in this episode already.
Oh, yeah, that was this year. God, it feels like he's been around forever, Kyle.
I know. He's been stressing everybody out. He's aged you all.
Yeah, he feels like he's just been in my life for so long. And I don't know anything else.
He's an Elder Dragon, dude. I'm keeping it as it is. I've got a tokens build around it for our budget league. I've transitioned how I play Vivictus, which I think has changed my experience with it. Because like I mentioned, I was
we talked about that
I was being
earlier,
kind to a lot of people, and now I'm just like, I'm mean to everybody. I'm a fucking dragon. It all gets fire.
Okay. Anything else?
Halar the Fire Fletcher. Speaking
Yeah,
of fire,
for how could I forget? It's budget diet Perforos that can actually attack
it's really straightforward because
with trample.
just get kicker spells and
It's surprising.
get +1/+1 counters.
It's surprising.
It took a little bit to balance the amount of, because you need spells that do get more counters on Halar, I think, to be really effective, as opposed to just relying on the kicker spells to get you those counters.
But you don't want to overdo.
But you don't want to overdo it because then you need kickers to land in your hand. So
Sure.
it's a hated commander in our budget league.
I don't think anyone hates it. I think they just,
They don't want to die.
It's
That's
like-
the thing.
it's like pubic lice, man. You got to deal with it. Like the sooner, the better.
And that's true. That's true. So I have put.
Not that I'm speaking from experience or anything.
I imagine there will at some point be some edits due for Halar to try and protect Halar, because it is spot removal. Like, it's public enemy #1 for sure. It needs to go. I have one last deck. Do you
Okay,
have any
what
more?
is it? What is it?
So this is another one that we really bug people with how we pronounce it.
What is it?
Aminatu.
Oh, that's another one that we. Is that how you say it?
Apparent-
Aminatau is how we've been saying it.
Yeah,
Aminatu.
Aminatu, I guess, is how you say this one.
I actually like Aminatu better.
That sounds good. That one's. I literally unsleeved that today to put Varina into sleeves.
Well, that's that.
That's that.
We've talked in length about her.
Yeah,
You know,
we don't need any more
See you in the
discussion.
future, Aminatu.
Yeah. Come get me when you've
Sorry,
grown
we
up and
couldn't-
you can do a little more.
Sorry, we couldn't figure your name out. Tetsuko Umezawa, Fugitive. That's my.
That one's. We both ended with
That's
duds,
my. That's
dude.
my Aminatu, man. She came, she went, and it's gone already. The way I built it originally was I like combat damage deck. Things like, Daring Saboteur and the Raven Guildmaster, like just anything I could get where it went uncontested. I attack, I get a combat trigger, and neat stuff happens. And the deck just did not put it in. Like there was no way to synergize these combat triggers to make anyone worried other than just like annoyed. So
Like, wow, Andy's drawn a lot of cards. Shit.
yeah, or something. And even still, it's like, well, he's not fucking doing anything with them, so whatever. The craziest ever I got was where I got a Quietus Spike on one of them. Cool. That was the craziest it ever got, where anyone was actually worried. It's like, wait, we can't block any of the guys that he keeps re-resolving, so we better
Guess we
actually
better deal with that
deal
spike.
with the actual equipment. But then I switched it to an infect configuration.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't do enough infect fast enough. If you could ever dream of such a thing, it can't. It can't.
I just think that's so
It
funny.
just can't, dude. It can't do 10 damage fast enough and consistently enough.
It's just shit.
So I switched it back. But this time I had like a lot of, ways to just keep okay, if I'm going to do these combat tricks or combat damage effects, I'm just going to make sure they stay in play all fucking game, goddammit. I'm just going to not let them go. So I had like Teferi's Veil, every goddamn piece of counter magic I could think of that was like 2 and down.
Yeah.
Just to no, like just not letting anything get through.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just still the same thing. Like the damage was even worse in this setup because I just wasn't able to get anywhere. So I really want the deck to work. If someone has a Tetsuko list that works, and
fucking let us know.
don't say, oh, it works if this happens. Like I really, really want it to work. I'm a sucker for combat triggers like that, like techie, like the Kudu Mind Eater and things like that. Like I'm like a freak about those, but I just, for whatever reason, man, it wasn't holding up. It wasn't light in the tunnel. It wasn't doing it. Yeah.
Well, dude, 2018, man.
Yeah, that's 2 episodes in a row to reflect on the year. Do you think that's a bit much? This was a longer one too. We haven't gone this far for a while.
Yeah, it's a fireside chit chat about 2018.
Yeah,
I guess.
definitely.
I hope our souls are full now.
Yeah.
Let's go get some wassail, dude.
Dude, do you think 2019 is going to be our mother? Are you my mother, 2019? Are you my mother? We had a pretty crazy year. You had a lot of decks. I lost track of how many.
Yeah, I built a lot. I think, yeah, I think there's a lot of things I'm holding out hope for, like the new Ravnica coming. Hopefully, Commander 2019, we're not as bent out of shape about.
Yeah. What if it's just so bad, but we've kind of ran out our gas, so we have to just say, well,
they're just treating us like toddlers throwing a tantrum.
We just do it like we did with Unstable. We just don't even talk about it. We just move through it. Yeah. All right, cool, man. See you in 2019, my dude.
On the other side.
Okay, see you in 2019. Hey, thanks again for sitting through another retrospective, opinion-riddled episode stuffed with nonsense. The music you're hearing is by the one and only Home. The album and the song are both called Falling Into Place. I just wanted to say for both Kyle and myself, thanks for sticking with us for 2018. Thanks for your kind words, your support, and just taking the time to hang out with us every week. It really means the world to us, and we will see you again.